back to Naaman, he was not a believer. He was sick with leprosy. Naaman belonged to a hostile nation. But guess what? God had a plan for Naaman. God has a plan for you. God loves you. Faith opens the door for God's blessing on your life. The prophet Elisha heard of the problem, and he sent a message for the king to send Naaman to him. Now, here was the answer. Naaman rushed to the home of Elisha. Perhaps Naaman thought that Elisha would welcome him, bow down to him because he was a powerful man, and honor him, give him a proper seat, and give him maybe even some refreshments. But when he arrived, the prophet had his servant give him a message. Go dip 7 times in the Jordan River. Naaman was shocked. His pride was hurt. He was not used to being treated like this. He expected a lot more respect. He said, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, wave his hands over the spot and cure me from my leprosy. He had so many good, clean rivers to go back and dip in his country. Why should he come to the muddy river here in Jordan and dip himself? There was hurt feelings, and it produced resentment, and he wasn't sure what to do next, because you know what? He didn't even know where to turn to. He was full of leprosy, and because of his leprosy, he was really in a mess. And guess what? He couldn't turn away. He didn't know where to go. His pride was hurt. Nothing was going his way. But guess what? He still kept on doing what he needed to do. Do we come before the Lord with a set agenda of how he should meet our needs? Are we offended when he changes the agenda? Do we give up on God because he has chosen to do things differently? Can we see ourselves in Naaman's reaction? God, you do it my way, or there is no way. My friend, he has the answer. He is God. And when we obey him and move in faith, he does the impossible. God then used another voice to speak to him. This time, it was the servant who had come with him and said, my father, he said to Naaman, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then, when he tells you, wash and be cleansed, that you should do that simple thing? Through the voice of that servant, God speaks even to us today. You see, God has done everything to make the miracle possible. And when he asks us to do something simple that is different to what we expect, you know what? We just give up. God asks us if we are prepared to be obedient to what he has revealed to us. When God asks us to do something, it is our opportunity to use our faith. If God makes a promise to you, remember, he always will keep it. If he says he is going to use you, he will use you. If he says he is going to bless you, he will bless you. If he says, I will protect you, he will protect you, because God cannot and will not lie. You see, if we have faith that listens, we must be also prepared to do what God says and persist until we have the answer. Faith presses on to its goal. Do you know that? Faith presses on to its goal. Now in Galatians 6:9, the Apostle Paul says, let us not get tired of doing what is right, for after a while we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't get discouraged and give up. Now, one reason why we get tired of doing what is right is because it is easier to do what is wrong. If doing what is wrong was hard, nobody would do it. It is easier to be undisciplined than disciplined. It is always easier to lie than to tell the truth. It is easier to be selfish than to be unselfish. It is easier to put up with things rather than confront somebody in love. It is always more difficult to do the right thing. That's why it takes energy, it takes effort, and that's why we get tired doing what is right. It takes energy to do God's will. Naaman had to learn how to keep on doing the right thing. Dipping 7 times would have been simple, but you know what? It was embarrassing. People were all looking at him. The great commander of the Armenian army is dipping in the muddy river Jordan. He may have felt he was a picture of foolishness. He was humbled to obey and now felt the shame of keeping on obeying while nothing seemed to be happening. His attitude was being challenged. Friend, listen to me. When God asks us to do something, He calls us to take a risk. We risk looking foolish. We risk our prestige. We risk our social standing. We may hold out for once, twice or thrice, and then desire to give up, because that begins to press on us. Can we hold out and do what God has asked us to do completely? With each repetition, Naaman grew closer to the end, but faced the increasing pressure of what he would do if it did not work out. Keeping on in faith requires an obedient heart, a determination to get to the goal. In the Bible, King Saul, in 1 Samuel 15:13-23, he was made the arm of God's judgment on a wicked nation, the Amalekites. His orders were to conquer and completely destroy everything owned by Amalek. But Saul thought he would do one better. He preserved some of their flocks, saying it was for the purpose of sacrifice to God. The disobedient heart will produce good-looking religious reasons for its actions. If Saul was acting in faith, he would have fulfilled exactly what God wanted him to do. But his arrogance caused him to fail. And guess what? God rejected Saul. Faith enables us to continue up to the end. Let's repeat our memory verse for today. Galatians 6:9. Are you ready? Let us not be weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Naaman set his mind to fulfilling God's command fully. And when he had taken the seventh dip, he emerged from the river totally healed by the power of God. You see, his actions had worked together with his faith. He had persevered to receive the reward of healing. Now, among us, there may be those of you who have a secret problem that needs urgent attention. Perhaps it's a vicious habit, a hidden habit that nobody knows. Maybe you know, or you kept it hidden. Perhaps it's an illness like Naaman, something you don't want to talk about, you're shy about. Perhaps it's something that has developed in the place of work, or it's a family crisis and it's hurting you deeply. Friend, listen to me. Today, you can call upon the Lord. No matter who you are, no matter what background you come from, what religious background or what ethnic background, there are no boundaries with God. God loves man. We put the labels. God has no labels. He has no categories like that. He loves all of mankind. You can listen to what He says to you and do what He asks you to do. As you are faithful in fulfilling God's requirements, He blesses you with a miraculous answer. Naaman reached the goal he had been given. What was his goal? He received healing. But even more important, Naaman got to know God through his experience. He said, "Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel." As Naaman did it, so can you. Put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ, who did everything on your behalf to make sure that you can have life eternal and also victory and healing and miracles in this life that you live here on earth. I want to tell you, you can be an overcomer through His power working in you. You see, with faith, you can believe for the impossible and enjoy the wonderful results of faith in your own life. Bow your heads, close your eyes. I want you to believe with me right now that God can perform that miracle for you.